Welcome, Bishop Jim, and thank you for agreeing to come and answer questions from the St Andrews Young Adults. How long have we been debating these issues of human sexuality?
Well, it rather depends on the we. If you say we in one dimension, it might be that we've been debating as a church for at least as long as the Church of England have been debating that question. So the Church of England, for instance, was very involved in the Wolfenden report around homosexual law reform in England, and that report was released in 1958. So that goes back that far. Again, from the Church of England, the Lambeth Conference of 1978 debated issues of chastity. We all know that 1998 Lambeth Conference was an extraordinarily significant and in some ways very unpleasant debate. So those are, if we consider ourselves as part of that we. If we say we as in the church here in New Zealand, well, again, 1998, Bishop David Coles chaired a report for Tikanga Pākehā on human sexuality. It was called entitled Dialogue, and that report was very significant, prompted some discussion in various parts of our church. Then beyond that, we've had further layers of debate. The Windsor Report debate was very significant in terms of us as a church. 2004, that was released. We've had layers of hermeneutic hui, 3 of those, so layers of that. Of course, the church was also involved in homosexual law reform debate in New Zealand, and that was, we've just recognised that was 1986, the Hero Parade just recognised that here in Auckland. So there have been multiple layers of, and how you interpret the we. Churches have been engaged in that debate, significant members of our church have been involved. And then there's another layer of the we. Various congregations and of course families have been part of this conversation and debate, sometimes not pleasant, as members in their community, loved and cherished members have come out, wanted to be acknowledged for their sexual orientation and so forth. And in some congregations that debate has been very significant and going down very deep. And I can think of particularly one congregation in the Diocese of Auckland where the hurt around that debate remains. So that we, for that congregation, is, it's very intimate we, shall we say that. So the debate's been going for a long time, and at least in terms of your lifetime, Sasha, more than your lifetime.
What was your involvement with the Way Forward report that was released earlier this week?
First, a little correction. The report is entitled A Way Forward, and that's important because it proposes a way that the working group has come up with, a way that we might proceed together. My role in that was was a member of the working group. The working group now kind of ceases to exist, having delivered our report to the General Synod Standing Committee. We will have to, I guess, and we've still to work out exactly how this will happen, we'll probably have to stand up the front of General Synod and speak about it in some way, shape or form. But I was a member of that group charged with the responsibility of producing a way forward, and that's what we've done. It will be interesting now to see what General Synod will do with that. But you couldn't take me as an unbiased member because I've been, up to my neck in it.
Yeah. So what was the report trying to achieve?
Well, I think here, Sasha, the key thing for anybody who's interested in a Way Forward report is one has to read Motion 30 that gave us our work. There were layers to that piece of work. The key ingredient was, how do we provide a way forward for us to provide a blessing for same-gender couples, same-sex couples, and do that in a way that those who do not agree with that, who think we cannot do that, feel assured and secure that their view is being held with integrity, and those who want to do that can also do that with an integrity. Now, there are other layers, very significant layers. The report affirms the traditional doctrine of marriage. It asks for other pieces to happen. How do we recognise those who are already married, civilly married, who are in same-sex relationships? So there are layers to it, but the principal aim of the report is to provide that way where we can do hold these two lines of thought together.
What does this report offer to members of the Church who hold differing opinions on the issues of ordination and marriage?
Well, I think it does provide us a way in which we can hold our differing opinions. It will allow, in those, if General Synod approves, and there are layers of that approval, but if the proposal was accepted in totality and we went through all the layers of approval, it will provide a way in which somebody in a same-sex relationship who is already civilly married, has had that relationship blessed, could be deemed by a bishop to be in what is, and this is an important phrase, in a rightly ordered relationship. And so for those members of our church who are in same-sex relationships, they will be able to be ordained and hold a licence in a diocese, and this is a complication, in a diocese where they've approved the liturgies. So I think it's a step forward. It delivers up what we wanted from, or General Synod wanted from the working group, which is nothing short of a way in which we can live with each other with generosity.
The report does attempt to hold together two very different viewpoints. What would you say to someone who thinks this is not possible for the Church to have two views?
Well, this is the nub of it, really. Certainly for some people, this goes really deep for some people, and I completely appreciate that point of view. How can we hold, as it were, two positions on an issue? I think what we're really saying is we're holding no particular position. We're postponing holding a view on this, and this is significant too. In a sense, we're saying this is not a matter over which we have to agree. We can, as it were, hold our disagreement on this issue and still live with one another. Some people frame this as surely we have to agree on first order matters, but this matter is a second order matter, and that's how we're doing what we're doing. But you will know, I think, that there are other matters over which the Church holds disagreement, and to my mind the most significant is the issue of whether we can go to war as Christians and support that position. You'll know that some Anglicans are very committed pacifists and some are not. I take that to be a very significant matter over which we disagree, but we live with our disagreement, and within this church here there would be a range of views about that. There are committed pacifists part of this congregation, and there are those who those have served in armed forces in this congregation. We don't duke it out with each other every week, neither do we suggest that that matter is unimportant.
Bishop Jim, to be more specific now, how does the report further the discussion about ordaining people in same-sex relationships?
Well, it's a step forward. If the proposals are accepted in totality or amended in a fashion that still allows that, because that's what we've achieved in the proposal, is that somebody in a same-sex relationship, as I've already said, who's civilly married, who's then had their relationship blessed, in a diocese where that's all accepted, they would be able to be hold a licence in this diocese, be ordained, hold a licence, and be the vicar of this parish. If they went through they were selected as the vicar. So the point is that all of that is going to be possible. It's not going to be possible tomorrow because, again, as you know, Sasha, the Church takes a couple of years to make up its mind on these things. And that's mostly a very, very good thing, that we consider these things carefully. And for some people, the pace of change is already too fast, right? For other of us, the pace of change is too slow.
In New Zealand, marriage equality came into law some time ago, and yet this report talks about blessing relationships rather than offering a marriage in the church. Why is that? Because the motion 30 that set our little working group up into motion, it was very clear that we affirmed the traditional doctrine of marriage. In a certain sense, you could say we ring-fenced marriage at that point and said marriage is something that we will not do with same-sex couples. Now at that point, I know that some feel that we've lost a battle, and that's true. For those who seek marriage equality in our church, there's still a layer of disappointment, but in a way that disappointment happened at General Synod in 2014. We could not fulfil our terms of reference as a working group and introduce some idea of marriage equality. What we've done, and we've attempted to do, is provide a way in which a couple who are already civilly married can have their relationship blessed in this church and in other churches, with a few provisos around that, right? So what we're living with here, Sasha, is for some people even that is a step too far. I recognise that in the Diocese of Auckland, which I know reasonably intimately, it's going to be a point of real disappointment. And again, the question is, can we live with each other, in a certain sense, tolerate one another's sense of disappointment, because we ought to be acutely aware of each other's disappointment and pain on this issue. It's real. At the end of the report, there are 2 different services for blessing marriages. How are these new services different to the marriage services?
Well, it's not a marriage service, right? So that's extraordinarily important. It is the blessing of the relationship, and we have stipulated that the couple must be civilly married. We've done that for a variety of reasons. We couldn't countenance the idea that somebody in a de facto relationship would turn up for the blessing of their relationship. Why wouldn't we countenance that? Well, for one reason, there are a number of, as it were, goods that occur in a civil marriage. It ensures that, as it were, the most amount of justice is set in law for each partner. So we've set that as a precondition, but what we're doing is we're blessing that relationship. we're assuming that they're already married, they've already exchanged vows. So within the liturgies, they do not exchange vows. Importantly, liturgically, there is no exchange of rings. That's always been something that's, in the tradition of the church, been held to be something that's quite significant. People don't realise that in the rubrics that's the little instructions in our prayer book, it says that there is at least one ring. So there's no exchange of rings. So there are important points in which we've kept the liturgies distinct, and one's a blessing and one's a marriage.
Do these new services contradict or change the traditional understanding of marriage as being between one man and one woman?
No. We haven't changed marriage, and we haven't contradicted it. Put a new thing beside it, or at least that's what the proposal is. And so in that regard, I think we've, and here I'm speaking very much as a member of the working group, right? I think we've delivered what Motion 30 asked of us. So nothing's changed, a new thing sits beside it.
If General Synod adopts the proposals in this report, how can communities like this one explain the Church's position to same-sex couples wanting to get married here at St Andrews?
Well, I would imagine that you'd try and frame that positively. We'd say to people, you are welcome to walk down the aisle with your partner and have your relationship blessed. We'd also have to be honest, they cannot get married here. So a same-sex couple presenting to the vicar of this parish or any parish, if all of these approvals went through, would be told, would have to be told they cannot get married here. And again, we recognise that would be cause of some hurt. Hopefully, there would be enough of a sense that we're trying to do our best by everybody in this, and enough sense that receiving the Church's blessing for a same-sex couple is sufficient for them. I'd have to recognise that, at least as I understand those folk I know in same-sex couples, I can imagine that some would say that's still not enough for us. It really is the best we can do in our attempt to be generous to all sides in this conversation.
Whenever the Church faces a major change, there is a fear that some may choose to leave the Anglican Church. Is there anything you'd like to say about that?
This is the most painful bit, right, Sasha? Any time somebody from a congregation, a community, chooses to leave, that's painful. The fact is, often people just slip away, and we, after a while, notice that they're not around. But you know, here's the most painful edge for all of us. I think many, if not most of us, know somebody who sits at one edge of the conversation or debate, and somebody else who sits at the other end. And that's certainly true for me. I have people I care for and consider precious at both edges of this debate. What I think happened at General Synod at Waitangi in 2014 was a sense that the Church gathered there, the room looked at each other and saw exactly that, and then said to each other, by implication, find a way that we can hold together. It won't be perfect, it won't please us all, but it would certainly please us, and we think, and I genuinely think this went on at General Synod, we think that it would please God if we could hang together on this. There was a real sense at General Synod that the Holy Spirit was somehow at work in all of this. And there was a strong desire to find simply our way forward. And I think the report delivers that up.
What would you like most people to take away from this report?
Well, the hardest things for people to take away are, you know, the blood, sweat and tears that went into the report, because, you know, there's been a lot of meetings. Look, I hope people can read between the lines enough of the report to see that we have tried our very best to deliver on the desires and aspirations and indeed prayers that are in the Motion 30. After that, you know, there's a point at which somebody who, like me, who's been involved, you put down the work and you say it now has, you know, I've done my bit, we have done our bit, General Synod will now decide. But I sure hope people get through the report a sense that we do want to live together on this, and we don't want to kind of tear ourselves asunder on it.